God worked in my life quite recently. Last summer, I had an opportunity to go to Alaska and be a camp counselor for the native junior high students that lived there. And I didn't really realize the emotional and spiritual impact that it was going to have on my life. In my mind, I thought it was just going to be another camp experience, but I couldn't have been more wrong. This trip was going to cost me out of pocket $1,400, which, coming from a high school senior with a part-time job as a hostess, was a very difficult task. And in order to gain money, I started doing work projects, and this is where people from our church would call us and ask us to do yard work. In exchange, they gave us money for our trip. We bonded together as a team, and we started laughing over just some of our experiences, and one was, for example, raking dirt, and it took us over 3 hours to do. And we look back at that now and just continue to laugh, and it brought us closer together. So the spiritual battle really kicked in about a week before we left, and it was hard to come to terms with the fact that I was going to a camp to teach the gospel to these kids when I hadn't fully read the Bible myself, and it was hard, and I just had to keep on reminding myself of God's faithfulness. In order to get to Port Allsworth, we had to take bush planes, and these were very bumpy plane rides, but they were filled with just God's beauty and His creation. For the first 2 days, our team tried to stay out of the way of the previous camp going on. We made our own food and focused on the site training and team bonding. The night before we were the leaders of the camp, we went on an excursion to a spot across the lake. And we ended up just spending time in community with each other. And we ended up playing baseball with a rock and a log, which was apparently an Alaskan thing to do. And we just had fun enjoying time with each other. On the third day, our campers came in by bush planes, and this was the day I met my 4 campers, Michelle, Bella, Velma, and Larissa. The reality that these 4 girls would be looking up to me for spiritual guidance was terrifying, and 3 out of the 4 of them hadn't committed their lives to Christ yet, and all of them faced a broken home life. The first few days were hard and choppy to get into the rhythm of camp. Mornings were early and nights were late, and the sun never set. The next day felt like a week, and 2 days felt like an eternity. I was sleep-deprived, fatigued, and homesick. And by the 4th day, the entire team started dropping like flies. Everyone began getting sick, and I felt like I hit the lowest, and this was the time that I was most vulnerable. How could I be this energetic leader I was supposed to be when I felt as crappy as I did? And on top of this, we had an incident with one of our campers where we thought that he lost his eyesight due to a water balloon accident, and it was cool to see my team come together, and this is what you see here. Over spending time in God's Word each morning before my campers woke up, I felt God telling me just to be still. But of course, me being me didn't listen. I was convinced my go, go, go mantra was going to carry me through the end of camp. By the 5th day, I was physically forced to be still and take a step back. During a deadly game called Rabbit Sticks, the most injury-prone game I've ever played, I was bit by some weird Alaskan bug on the field. The bite swelled up my ankle so badly I could hardly walk. And this forced me to be still and rest, and it was hard. I think when the times I was still, I was able to experience God's love even more. I especially felt it through my team members who would rather give me a piggyback ride or carry me on a gurney made of twigs and cabin sheets to a waterfall 4 miles away and then see me miss out. And I'll have you know I did make it to the waterfall with a lot of ibuprofen, ice, and support. The week went by faster than I thought it would, and before I knew it, I was saying goodbye to all my campers. My girls couldn't stop hugging my co-counselor and me, and before getting onto the plane, they hugged the ground. It was so sad to think of all the brokenness they were going to step back into. And at the end of camp, my girls never came to Christ, and that was hard for me to handle. I felt like it was my fault and shortcoming that prevented my girls from saying the prayer of forgiveness. But as the saying goes, in the dark the enemy festered. I confessed to my team, and it ended up most of each and every one of them had the same struggle. My job wasn't to save them. Only Christ could do that. Salvation isn't like an assembly line where a kid comes into camp, learns about God, gets saved, and then goes home at the end of the week. My job was to show Christ to these kids through my words and actions, and to love on these kids just as Christ has loved me. I hate to say it, but I think the best part of being in Alaska came in the last 36 hours of being in Port Ellsworth. In these last hours, my team had the campsite entirely to ourselves, to fish, hike, and explore the terrain. I climbed Mount Tenalian, and that took me over 8 hours to do. And our team fished a lot. And I just enjoyed spending time with my team, my family. I hope you were able to pull something from my story. And if you weren't, I'll give you some ideas that I carry with me. Choose to listen to God and cling to Him even when you're at your lowest and you want to believe the lies that you feel. He never will fail you. And don't always focus on the destination. If you do, you will miss so much of the journey. And trust yourself and your abilities even when you're put into a completely uncomfortable situation. Thanks for watching.